Hello world, and welcome to Cooking with Josh. I am your host, Josh. Today in Josh's kitchen, we're going to be teaching you how to cook scrambled eggs, a breakfast classic that is an essential part of any cook's cookbook. Scrambled eggs is personally my favorite thing to eat every single day for breakfast for the last month because I've been unable to leave my house and I have a lot of eggs and a lot of time. I will be teaching you today how to make scrambled eggs the correct way. So throw out any assumptions you have about how to make scrambled eggs because they're most likely wrong. You're going to come away from this with a deeper, richer understanding of the art of scrambling the egg. So with that, let's get into it. Okay, here's what you need to cook scrambled eggs. First, equipment. Grab yourself a smallish saucepan. It's important that you use a saucepan and not a frying pan for reasons I'll get into in a second. Next thing you need is a rubber spatula. After that, of course, you need eggs. You can't scramble eggs without eggs. Go ahead and use chicken eggs, those work best, but you can use any other type of eggs if you have them. Now you need crème fraîche. If you don't have crème fraîche or you don't know what crème fraîche is, frankly, I'm embarrassed for you. And you know what they say, the cream makes the cook. If you don't have crème fraîche, get out of the kitchen. Go to the store, buy it. You also need butter. Just a little bit. And for seasoning, just go ahead and use salt and pepper. Preferably from a grinder, but if you don't have a grinder, then you're a failure of a cook, so stop watching. And lastly, this is optional, but I like using cheese in my eggs because I like them cheesy. So you can use cheese or not, just get a bit. Okay, and with that, we can start cooking. Okay, let's begin. First thing you need to do, put your saucepan on your stove and crack your eggs directly into the saucepan. For a normal person, 2 to 3 is a good meal. 4 if you're feeling crazy and ravenous. The reason that we're using a saucepan instead of a frying pan is because keeping it all in a... shit. Don't worry about that, that's normal. Putting the eggs in the saucepan allows us to mix everything directly in it. That's important because if we overmix or overcook, then the proteins in the eggs break down, and we want to avoid that. So now that we have the eggs in our saucepan, it's time to add some butter. Go ahead and grab some, and you just add it directly to the pan. Okay, you know what? That's fine. It's a happy little accident. Okay, so now go ahead and turn on your Stoverino. Do that. Now the important thing to do now is just keep stirring. With scrambled eggs, it's important to just keep stirring. You'll notice that I didn't whisk it or do anything like that before, and that goes back to breaking down the proteins. You don't want to do that. If you break down the proteins, then your eggs are going to become runny. So all I'm going to do is keep stirring. I've got it on a high heat, and I'm just going to stir it. Don't let the egg sit still in any one spot. You'll notice that it's starting to break down those yolks. I didn't have to beat it. I didn't have to do anything like that. This is also why I'm using the rubber spatula, not a whisk. Okay, so now we're going to take it off the heat for a minute. We're going to keep stirring. The pan will retain some heat, so it's okay to do this. And the reason we're doing this is because if it gets too hot, then the egg's protein is going to break down. It's not going to be as good. So that's a pattern you're going to want to keep in mind with scrambled eggs. On heat, off heat. Back on the heat. We're still stirring. If you ever cooked eggs and you get like that little gross buildup around the pan, the reason that happens is because you've overcooked the eggs and it's sticking to it. So if we keep taking it on and off, that's what we're avoiding. And so you're just giving it a good stir. And remember, when you take it off the heat, there's still heat in the pan, and that's what's cooking them still. By doing this, we can cook the eggs for longer without ruining them. We're going to go back on heat. Just stirring away. And you'll see it's starting to clump a bit. Okay, this is where the crème fraîche comes in. We use creme fraiche because it cools the eggs down. This lets us cook the eggs for longer over high heat without having to worry about overcooking them. So we're gonna mix that in, just kind of fold it in and go back on heat. So now the eggs temperature is dropped. We can keep stirring. You'll see it's kind of sticking around the sides of the pan. That's just because the microphone is making it difficult for me to really get in there and give it a proper stirring. But you get the idea. Let's go off heat. Keep stirring. See, it's starting to look a little scrambled now. Let's go back on. And look, notice how light and fluffy these are. They're not overly chunky. These don't look like what you'd get on the ranch, you know. They're light and fluffy. It's not runny either. Because again, we're not overcooking, we're not breaking anything down too much. And at this point, you might be tempted to put in the salt and pepper. You need to wait on that. Wait till the very end, because salt and pepper also break down the proteins of the egg. So if you want to avoid runny eggs, you need to stop with that. So now these are starting to look kind of good. I'm going to go ahead and include the cheese. Again, this is optional. You don't need cheese. If you're cheesy, you can put cheese in. The cheese will just melt in there. Just notice how I'm just stirring it away. That's what you want to do. If you cook eggs a lot, your arm's going to get really strong. So that's cool. You won't need to go to the gym. Take it off again. Go ahead and look at these. Look at that. That's beautiful. This is a scrambled egg fit for a king. And you can have it every day if you follow this recipe. So it's starting to look a bit done. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to turn the heat off. Then I'm going to keep stirring, because remember, the heat retains in the pan. And at this point, it's time to include the salt and pepper. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Remember, pepper from a grinder tastes a lot better, because when you grind the pepper, it breaks open the peppercorns, and the flavor is going to be a lot richer because of that. So just go ahead and do that. And with a pan, you might think you don't need to add very much, but when you're cooking the whole pan full, you do need a bit. A lot more than you would put for yourself. Let's go ahead and do the pepper. Let's do the salt. I'm a big fan of just seasoning with salt and pepper. To me, that just tastes better. It kind of accentuates the flavor that's already in your food, but lets it taste a little bit better. So I've got some salt in. Gonna just kind of get that all over. Okay. And now you're ready to plate and eat. Okay, the last thing to do is go ahead and plate your eggs. This one is the most complicated part, so be careful. Just take them, dump them on a plate. And there you have it, the perfect scrambled eggs. Bon appetit!